Oh,
There we go. We are live.
okay.
I
Now
see
we
it. I see it.
live. Okay, I think the way it works is maybe if you hit go live before, it would show the countdown and then it would get
Nah,
started.
nah. You're live now, bro.
Oh,
You're
no way.
up there.
Okay.
So
All right. We got two people watch it, or it's just me. I don't know. But yeah. Well, Chris, thank you for coming to my stream episode, the Chat with Jat live stream. Episode 4. I'm honored you're my first live guest. That is sick. So thanks for coming, man.
yeah, man. I like how that sounds. A chat with Jat. You know.
Chat with chat. Usually whenever I meet people like outside, they would be like, "Sorry, what's your name? Is it Jack? Jack?" And I'll be like, "No, it's Jat. Jat, like the cat." Like that's how I
Yeah.
always say it. So it always goes down like that.
Uh,
Hey, Investor Live.
there's there's Sean. I don't know if you met him before. Sean
No,
is a
I
former
haven't.
IBM employee. Yeah, he's a big follower of a lot of us content creators on Palantir. He creates a lot of Palantir stuff too. You know. So
Yeah.
I did a couple of live streams with him, man. So
Oh,
yeah.
for real?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I remember seeing him in the
Yeah.
loop in the past. So, I mean, Chris, something I want to ask you. I saw your background. Like, I was creeping on your LinkedIn before, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw that you pivoted from, being in radiology. I think it was in the army
Mm-hmm.
to now being an IT consultant, which is super cool.
Yep.
How did that happen? That transition, like, did it just?
Um, what happens is a lot of times you end up in the right place at the right time. And
Mhm.
basically what happened was I was in senior management of one of the hospitals in our network, and we had just got a new software platform that we were using for some of the things that we were doing, and it turned out that the way that they started the implementation process wasn't
Mhm.
that great. A lot of people didn't really like the feel of it, and I had to literally come in and my site. I knew how important this was going to be, so I really got my site together, got them to implement everything. I learned everything about it, and one of the vice presidents at the time, his head was on the line because what happens is he was the one that brought them in. So at that point, it was like, he would have gotten fired. Well, not fired, but he would definitely would have not looked really good. So he
Yeah.
asked me to just go around to the other hospitals and help train people and get them used to some of the processes and the workflows. And so in the process of doing that, everyone was just shocked at how quickly I was able to pick things up, but also be able to teach. Like today with the StreamYard thing, we were able to go through it, right, and get everything running very
Yeah.
quickly. So that's one of the skills that I realized that I had, and one of the insights that I have is that I can actually break things down pretty easily and be able to to put it out to people. And when I was in high school, I had done networking and I had done a lot of things with computers.
Yeah.
But the reason why I ended up going into medicine because my parents were like, "Beta, you need to do education. You need to do medicine. We don't do,
Yeah.
And it was literally right around the time when IT collapsed. So it was like one of those things that they're just like, Beta, medicine is always going to need people. You should do medicine. So that's why I ended
Yeah.
up more on the medicine side of things. So,
Oh, so
so
you
yeah,
went to med
yeah.
school in
No, no, not no, no, not med school, not med
okay,
school.
okay. Okay, you follow the radiology path, which is in the medicine field, which
Yeah,
gives you at least some credibility with the
yeah,
family.
yeah.
I totally get it.
Well, so it's funny when I told my parents like mom, dad, I was working at a pharmaceutical company at the time, and I just
Yeah.
did not like it. It was literally nothing but just constant testing and QA stuff, and it was rough. But
Mm,
so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna join the army, and I met with a recruiter, and before they give you, like they let you choose your job. So they were like,
yeah.
okay, so you have to take this test, and it's called the ASVAB. So I took the ASVAB, and they just pretty much gave me the book and said, you're qualified for everything, so pick whatever you want. And I remember the Navy tried to recruit me to be like a nuclear submarine engineer, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good. Like, I'm not gonna be stuck
Wow.
on a boat 6 months at a time with a bunch of dudes."
Yeah.
Because back then
Yeah.
you had to be like it was a male only thing in nuclear submarines. So I ended
Okay.
up saying, "Well, you know what? This is in healthcare," and so I told my parents like I'm joining the army, and they're like, "You need to leave. You need to get out of the house right now. We didn't come to this country to fight for this country like that." And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, that was
That's a
that was
big
rough.
decision, though. That was a big
Yeah,
decision, man.
yeah. But
Jeez.
but eventually, like I think about 15 minutes later, they kind of turned around and they said, no, no, we're happy that that you want to serve the country, but just we don't want you to take people's lives. I said, "Oh, listen, I'm going to be
Yeah.
in medicine. I'm not here to take people's lives. I'm here to save people's lives." And so
Yeah.
yeah, that just became. And after that, it's funny because like the story pivots from my parents going from like don't join the army to being like flag draped, everywhere. My dad got like an
Yeah.
army
Yeah.
sticker in the
Yeah.
background
Yeah.
that said
Yeah.
"Go
Yeah.
Army." What's funny is in India, I don't
Yeah.
know if people know this, but when you're part of the military, like there's like a
Mm.
certain level of prestige that people get for like
Oh yeah,
military families.
absolutely. Like if you're in Bangladesh, India, if you're in the military, it's you're upscale, like you made it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
100%.
what's funny is my dad thought like that kind of like prestige would kind of translate in the U.S. So he thought he could speed around like the city and
Oh,
stuff
he thought it
because
was
he's
above the
like, yo,
law
if
because the
any of the
sons of the
yeah, if any of these guys cops pull me over, I'll just tell them my son's in the army, and they'll just be like, no problem, sir, you're good to go.
they're like,
So
do you know who this guy is? It's my
yeah,
son.
yeah. So he
Yeah, I got
tried
you.
that. It worked a
Yeah,
couple of times for him, and then the
yeah,
third
yeah.
time, the state officer's like, pretty much like he was doing like 100 on the LIE, and
Oh
my
wait,
dad's
that's
my dad
100 miles per hour, right?
yeah, he's doing about
Oh, that's
100 on there.
fast. That's
That's
fast, man.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So the
okay.
cop pulls him over and he's like
Yeah,
the cop doesn't even get a chance to say like license registration. My dad just
yeah,
brings up like, no, my son's in the army, it's okay. And the cop's like just dumbfounded, like,
yeah, yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So then my dad, so of course the cop gives him a freaking ticket, and literally the only reason why he didn't get arrested because after a certain
Yeah.
speed limit you get arrested, and
Yeah,
it's
100
because I
miles,
was in
man.
the army. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Wait,
So
because in
yeah,
Canada it's kilometers per hour, right? So
yeah,
let me just put this into something I can understand. Dude, no fucking
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yo, no
So
way. Your dad was going
so
160 an
yeah.
hour. That's crazy.
So at that point, my dad's like, okay, tries to pull this my son's in the army thing. The cop
Yeah,
like
yeah,
lets him go with a freaking huge ticket. And my dad calls me. He's like, listen, can you call like, one of your colonels or your generals and get this ticket taken care of? I'm like, this is not India. Like we don't have this kind of like corrupt political logic where I could just make a phone call to someone who can
That's
like
hilarious.
call someone in like the DOC. So after
Yeah.
that, my dad stopped speeding, thinking that having a son in the army somehow gave him the magical privilege of driving around so fast. So yeah,
But
but essentially they were very patriotic after that.
yeah, that's cool because I've heard of the cases like that, like where people are in the Canadian Reserves or they're in the police force, and these are like the rumors where people be like, oh, when you get pulled over, you just flash your card, and people would just respect you and just say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm letting you off tonight,
No, I
but
mean
apparently not all the young
it's
guys don't care. All the young guys like, I don't
it,
give it. Don't even show me the card. I'm
no,
giving you a ticket.
it's a courtesy, like
Yeah,
you shouldn't
yeah,
abuse it.
of
Like that's
course.
the thing. It's a courtesy. It's not something that, oh yeah, I'm not gonna, I should just speed around because my
Yeah,
son's in the army. Like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
logic, and so the funny thing is, I could even understand if the logic was I'm in the army and I'm speeding
Yeah.
around a little bit, but it's like you're trying to get off because of your association with somebody else. So I don't
Yeah,
know, man.
hundred
My dad,
percent.
my dad realized that does not happen. That does not work. So.
So wait, when you switched over right into your IT job and now you're
Mhm.
doing IT consulting for
Yep.
your NYC, the hospital of NYC or
Hmm.
the network,
Yep.
do you find like that you've picked up a lot of skills that helps you kind of decipher what's going on with Palantir, like all of the technical blogs that Palantir puts out? I really don't like I don't mess with it. Like I don't even bother going into the details because it's English, but I don't understand what they're
Yeah.
talking about. But do
S-
you take time to go through with that?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that you'll see is that when they talk about certain things, when you're involved in an organization, you're going to come across those things. So if you're an inquisitive person like I am, you're going to try to learn about them. And you're
Yeah.
also going to use those same tools to make your life easier in that organization. So an example is an ERP system, right? An enterprise resource planning system. That's
Hmm.
something that you're using that I use every day in order to accomplish certain things that I have to, whether it be on the ordering side, whether it's on some of the other training stuff that I have. So we have a bunch of things that we use. So a lot of the tools that they talk about, right, are things that they're trying to disrupt the current status quo that's out there,
Yeah.
right? The other thing is if you want to gain knowledge, it's all out there. Like you can look
Yeah.
up on YouTube all sorts of AI things. One of the things I highly encourage is going to CodeStrap's Discord and
Yeah.
basically talking a little bit with CodeStrap. But on top of it, CodeStrap has a website that actually has like a almost like a developer a course that you can take to learn about different things, and it's great because like the first half is just literally breaking down all the technical stuff that goes on with this world, right, and how
Yeah.
everything happens, and then after that you can work on back end software and stuff. So like right now when I'm doing implementation stuff, I'm also learning about all the architecture that's involved when I'm implementing it, because if I'm supporting an application, I need to know where the faults can come from, whether they can be coming from our cloud system, whether they're coming from our local on-prem servers that we have at a data center. So
Yeah.
all of these things just kind of like translate right back into my day-to-day life. And so because of that, I'm able to grasp some of the things at a high level. There are still areas where I'm learning that I'm not 100% on, but for the most part I can get and I can understand. The other thing is I've been on the operational side of management. So
Yeah.
that's the other part. So I see the challenges, right? And I've been in the role where I've been asked to gather information. I've been asked to make decisions, right? And so I know what the difficulties of making those decisions are. And one of the biggest difficulties in making any decision is making sure you're making the right decision. And the only way you can do that is by taking a whole bunch of data from all sorts of areas, putting it together, and then putting it on either a spreadsheet or putting it on a PowerPoint. And then you're kind of like trying to piece together and justify everything that you're doing. And it's hard. So when you have a platform like Palantir, which can kind of bring all that stuff together and put it in one single plane, it's like a game changer for most people. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that there aren't other companies trying to do that, but they just haven't done it as well as Palantir, right? And that's one of the biggest value propositions of Palantir, that they are ahead of their time with a lot of
Yeah.
things. It's really really hard to take a lot of software, combine it together without having to have these month-long integration processes where A equals A here and A equals A there. Especially when
Yeah.
there were two softwares built by two different companies. How do you
Hmm.
get them to talk to each other in a seamless way without wasting time trying to code plugins and adapters in between that? Well, that's what Palantir has figured out how to do automatically. So a lot of stuff right now is coming into their platform, and then they can actually use all that data and make it into a one, not only just one visible way, but they can also use it to kind of create predictions in the future. And that's where you have something called a digital twin, right? Where
Yeah.
you can essentially do testing on it to say A plus B equals C, right? So if you keep saying A plus B equals C, but what about if it's a D somewhere? Oh, that's just a lot of clicking all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
yeah. My
Yeah.
my thing
So
glitched, but I like this comment from Drew does whatever. Here for the thriving Indian Palantir community. Yeah, let's go, baby. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, go
So
ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of stuff. It's just the more data that you kind of put together, the harder it is to come up with the answer. So I said A plus B equals C. That's a very easy equation. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about tons and tons and billions upon rows of data and you're trying to combine them together, what ends up happening is it's really hard to get an answer, and it takes a lot of compute to get to the answer. And that's just a high level. There's so many more things that Palantir can do. it's
Yeah.
it's amazing. We're at a very early stage in this company's growth curve. Even though this company seems like it's old, it's 17 years old, it's actually newer than most people think. But their technology is built on some really really strong fundamentals, and I
I
think
mean,
they're going to do well.
to your point, I've seen this come up a lot, where people would say, well, Palantir, it's been alive since 2009, 2008. They've never made a profit. Like, why would you even invest in a company like this? Like, I would hear this comment all the time. And I would always say, like, guys, the journey of Palantir has been in phases. There's been like a secret R&D phase where they developed the software for governments, wasn't commercialized. And then they worked on Gotham, and Gotham came out and started to become more available to governments around 2015, I believe. And then Foundry came out in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think 2016. I think Gotham was a product that they had developed early on in 2008, but they haven't had any formal giant contracts. that they had literally come out with. There's
Yeah.
definitely some timeline issues because they had different products that they were trying to like bring out, and they might not have been called Gotham, but they're essentially it's a precursor to Gotham, right? It's
All
almost
right.
like saying I'm gonna sell you dough, tomato sauce, and cheese, but technically I sold you a pizza. You know, so
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's not, it's just what it's called, and it's the same thing with Foundry. Like Foundry is a product that they called as new, but the thing is, there are elements of Gotham built into Foundry, right? And all these
Yeah.
other technologies they had developed over 10 years ago. So I think,
Yeah.
like I said, I think right now we're like I said, we're still at a very early stage. I think though Foundry has got it started around 2016, 2017.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was lying. It was exactly 2016, and Gotham was 2008. I just opened my
Yeah.
notes, but yeah,
Yep.
but having said all of that, how we say Palantir is already ahead of its time. In one of the interviews, I remember Alex Karp was doing an interview, and he said Palantir has close to 300 modules, and some of these modules are just being commercialized by competitors now, but we've already done it. We've see the challenges that come with these modules, and we've already prepared for that, and we're already ahead. So I think that was the latest interview, even with Akash, where he mentioned that, where he said we see the problems with existing modules, and we already tailored the solution, and we're already out with the new modules. So
I think what it is they made they and they own up to it, which is always a good thing when a company owns up.
yeah,
They thought that they had the best product, which they might have had the best products, but they did a really bad job of trying to do outreach and marketing with it. They relied on super large customers. They only went after big customers, and
yeah,
they really didn't focus on the little guys too much because their software was really big and it was really thick, right? And they
too
essentially sold to
expensive.
governments and too
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah,
So that model, I think, was a little bit rough, and they understood that. And now they're trying to say, you know what, maybe we need to be in more people's hands now, right?
yeah.
So let's create lighter products that we can. So the example that I would give is imagine right now you're an enterprise, you're a CEO of a company. I come to you and I try to sell you Microsoft Office, and I say that it's going to cost you $70 per user per year, and you have 1,000 people, right? And you're like,
Yeah,
wait a second, no, I'm not going to pay that much money. That's crazy. I don't know
yeah,
what your product does, but you're like, yeah, but I have all this stuff. No, try selling you Microsoft Word. If I sold you Microsoft Word at $7 per license for an entire
mm-hmm.
year, you're gonna say, okay, yeah, you know what? I need a word processing software, right? So
Yeah,
once you start using
100%.
Microsoft Word, I got that door in you now, right? And now I
Yeah,
can say, hey, listen, I have this other product, Excel. Oh, what's
yeah,
Excel do? Oh, let me show you. And then it's like, hey, do you want to buy more licenses for
yeah,
Excel?
yeah,
Sure, yes, I do. And then more people get comfortable with Excel. And then it's like, hey, I have this other product. It's called PowerPoint, right? So
yeah. I
think
see
about
what you're
that.
doing. You're doing the
Yeah,
acquire, expand, and scale.
yeah.
That's
So
what
you
we're
see
talking
how
about. Yeah,
now you're getting to the point where you're able to sell the thick product eventually, but you
yeah,
did it in a very modular way. So
yeah.
that's all there is to it. Yeah.
You know what? One of the things, though, the acquire, expand, scale. There's been some drama with it too, right? Like, I read all the tea, all the drama about Home Depot, and I remember reading that in the past, one of their biggest concerns was the IT team was like super turned off by the fact that Palantir was trying to scale and like offer other modules to the business. Like for them, it was so off-putting. They were like, "You're here, you're charging us for this, and now you're going around trying to sell more, on our time, like the dollars we're paying you for." And my, I always ask myself, like, how do companies today feel about that? Like, I wonder if Palantir like revised its approach, or are they still doing it the same way, and customers can get turned off? Like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when this is happening, to really see
I
how it's going.
I think what it is you have to be able to work with a partner who wants to work with you, right? And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that they really explain in their call last time. And Sham says we were very adversarial towards their IT folk. So,
Yeah,
if you ever work in an organization, you have your IT side, the people who run all the computers and all that stuff. Then you have your organizational people who are always doing stuff around the operation of the business. So the benefit that most people are going to get, the value that most people are going to be able to generate is on the operational side, right?
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't include IT on their side, because IT can sometimes say, hey, maybe we can do the same exact thing, without it costing so much. Maybe I can build this product for you, right? And
100%.
sometimes the companies can say, yeah, you know what? Maybe the IT guys can do it, for cheaper. And so they might go with it. So that's why a lot of times they lost some clients. There were some other issues as well, related to that. But I think right now we're at a different point. I think they realized some of their key mistakes in the past, and they're not going with that anymore. They're changing up their sales model. They're hiring salespeople, but before it was literally just Alex Karp flying all over the country trying to get his
Yeah.
product sold. And it's like, no, no. I like the comment that Sean just made. I've sold deals
Yeah.
150 million to 1,000s in this space. It's all about value, not the product. Save me 10 million and I'll spend 5. And that's the other thing too. Like, you have to be able to justify to companies why they're going to spend all this money on your product. If you can't do that and you just say, "Well, I have a great product," that's hard.
Yeah.
If you get them to use your product, that's why they have that the first phase of saying we'll eat up all the cost, right? And it's actually saving the business money. Then they'll start to invest more, and they'll put more money into the program and then develop it. And a lot of this stuff is all about digital transformation. They have to, and it's not something that's just like you can just buy and implement and it's ready to go. Like, it's about changing the way an organization functions. And when you have that, there's other costs that are associated with it on top of just
Yeah.
the product
The
itself.
change
You have to,
management
yeah,
costs. Yeah.
you have
All
to
of that.
you have to train people to use the product. You have to hire people to support the product, right? You're a
Yeah.
CPA. You know all the legacy costs that go into adopting anything.
Dude, I worked on an ERP implementation. We implemented SAP at an international company, and I remember we had our legacy system and SAP system. So I was part of the data migration for finance, and one of the things that was super challenging was just getting people, as simple as learn to do your job in SAP. It was hard, so I built a tool from the legacy to SAP. And once I left the firm, I heard like even 2 years later, people were still using that tool. Like they were just typing in what they would do in the legacy system, and it would spit out, "Oh, this is what you should do in SAP," and then they would do
Yeah,
that in SAP because change management is incredibly difficult. Like
yeah.
if you've been in a company for a long time, it takes many many months to get the results you want, and with ERP implementations, I mean, this is what blew me away about Palantir, where they would say, like, if we wanted to implement our data operating system, we could sometimes do it in hours at your company. Whereas, like, other firms, like when I did the SAP implementation, it took 12 months minimum just for the finance module. And the business module, the operating module for logistics was like 24 months. So it just blows my mind that Palantir can get that done so quickly in a short amount of time, but
Mm-hmm.
they still have that challenge of
Convincing
penetrating the
people.
market.
You're
Yeah,
convincing
convincing.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like the IT departments, I've worked at firms where we had a management tool and people were pitching us the management tool. We did a trial for like few months, and then the IT team said, "Screw it, we'll do the same thing. We'll just develop our own thing internally." And we ended up bailing on the tool that was being offered to us, and we developed something internally.
Yeah.
So it
I think
happens
Sean's
more often
asking a
than
pretty
not.
good question. Jat,
Yeah.
sorry, like you want to put that up? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jad. Sorry, I don't know. What do you do? IT consultant. I miss it all. Yeah. So Sean, I'm a CPA. I've always had a background in assurance and advisory. So first, I started my career at Deloitte, where I've done like financial statement audits, advisory, special audits for governments. Special mandates. Then I pivoted it to a international firm in the public sector, and I was always in accounting. It was always special projects, M&A, implementation of SAP, interesting stuff, not your typical accounting things. And now I'm working in the classic accounting role where I'm in charge of financial reporting, taxes, managing cash, all that good stuff that comes in the for being a leader in finance. So that's what I do. So I don't really have an IT background. The only time I got involved in SAP was to implement the finance module of SAP. It was like an 8 month project. It was super fun. It was eye opening. But it was also eye opening how much money was being spent. We had an army of consultants working for us, some charging like $250 an hour, 40 hours a week, 8 months, 9 months straight. It was insane how much it costs to implement a new system. So that's what always caught my eye with Palantir. Whenever they said, "Hey guys, we could come in, we could set up shop with one deployment engineer, and we can get it all done quickly." And I always appreciated that, and I always thought that stood out for Palantir.
Yeah. From your angle, what are the value propositions that you see for Palantir going into the CPA space, like in the accounting space and finance space? Like, what do you see them doing really well?
For me, I think the biggest takeaway was their anti-money laundering abilities. They've been working on it since the PayPal days, and that module has evolved, and it's now being used with the biggest banks in the world. And the fact that they can implement it, I saw a headline article where they said an European bank with thousands of branches needed to react to a new legislation, and they asked for Palantir support, and Palantir was able to get in and out in hours. And that, to me, was a huge statement to their ability to serve their customer and be able to always stay in line with upcoming laws or existing laws, and help protect that financial integrity that we have. Because the system we have, we take it for granted. Like, you and me, we send e-transfers or we do cash apps, we send money to each other. But like governments at a larger scale, they're trying to catch people doing bad things with money. And that's super hard and super complicated. And it becomes even more complicated with Bitcoin and all these different types of exchanges that are now available. So I find that Palantir is now becoming more crucial than ever to governments to enforce and to protect what we have, the system, the financial system that we have. So I really see that Palantir is critical in that. It's a critical player. That's my biggest thing.
Sorry, I was just like biting
No,
some
no, don't worry about it,
emotion.
man.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree, man. I think Palantir's got a great future ahead of itself. Drew, many teams leverage augmented staff, which is essentially staff on control. Yeah. So what it is when you're implementing things, you want end users to give their input on what they want. I'm just commenting on something that Sean put up.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So even though you're an accountant, you have some insights into how things should be done, how things should be implemented. Same thing with me. I mean, I'm on the clinicals. I was on the clinical side, so I have my say in implementing other softwares, right? But then
Yeah.
also, like I said, it's about professional development. You want to develop yourself to be able to work in environments like Foundry, because at the end of the day, once Foundry becomes more like ubiquitous, it's not only going to be people that are supposed to be using the product. It's supposed to be people on the ground like us, physically working on different projects and being able to utilize Foundry to make our lives easier, right? It's like, what use is Excel if only like the executive people in the organization can use it? No, why not train the people at the ground level to use it too? You never know what the person might come up with, what kind of KPIs that they could end up engineering. So, like I said, I'm always about educating staff on giving them products that's going to make them more efficient. And yeah, I think Palantir Foundry definitely has the ability to do that. The other thing is my time in the military. I could tell you, there's a lot of people think that the military is very organized. We're very structured. But I'll be honest, like when I was in 2008, 2009. We're still having a lot of our own challenges, right? We
Right.
have every branch traditionally has done things their own way. The Air Force does their things the own way. The Army does theirs the own way. The Navy does it their own way. And each one has a different objective. But the
Yeah.
question is, when we're being attacked, how do you combine all those objectives together to kind of synchronize them so that this way we're not on top of each other, or not we're not fighting against each other for resources, we're not fighting against each other for communications. Like you want to create a more what is that thing called? Like an easier picture. I don't know if you've ever played any real time strategy games like StarCraft, Brood War, or Command and
No,
Conquer. Never.
the
Well,
most I've played was Pokemon on my Game Boy back in the day.
yeah. Well, if you ever
Yeah.
played a real time strategy
Yeah.
game, that's like one of the things that you'll see. You have different units who have different abilities, and you're supposed to utilize that to defeat an enemy, right? So each unit comes with its strengths and it comes with its weaknesses. Now, the thing is, though, how do you coordinate all those units to make the move to basically take an objective, right? And that's what Palantir is doing, but it's doing that in real life. So that's the key. That's the value proposition, because it's really hard to do that. It looks easy when you're looking out on a video game, but trust me, to get humans to operate in that same way is very difficult, right? So basically coordinating a squad to go and attack this area, having Air Force cover that area, having the Navy make sure that they supply all the ships, the what do you call it, the food and everything to this area so that the army folk have
Logistics in a
something to
war
eat.
zone. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yeah,
it's
that's
crazy.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where Palantir originally, well, that's not where they originally started. Originally, they worked with trying to do intelligence work, where basically there was data from all sorts of places coming in. So they wanted to create a platform where you had all this data coming from all sorts of locations, put it into one thing, and then
Yeah.
have people on the ground be able to use that data to make more informed decisions. If you know a certain road is they planted an IED there every February for the last 3 years. What's the likely outcome the next February? That they're probably going
Nah.
to try to put an IED in the same area, right?
That's
Humans,
that's
we're
crazy
habits.
data.
Yeah, we're habits of we're creatures of habit, and we do things
Yeah.
in certain patterns, right? So what happens is, if you have a lot of data, the more data that you have, the better informed of a decision you can make. And then
Yeah.
there's different sets of data. Now the question is, why did they put the IEDs on that road in February and not in March? Well, the reason why is because maybe in March the weather's terrible, and maybe they just prefer to do it when the weather's better in February. I don't know,
Yeah.
but those are the things that happen. So when you overlay more data, you get better answers, and the more data that you have, the better answers that you'll get. But eventually, you get to a point where if you're not organizing that data, it's just going to end up
Yeah.
being like a big ball of goo that you're going to have to figure out how to untangle. Because it's
Yeah.
imagine me telling you my entire life story, and the only thing you get out of it is Kris is a very interesting guy, as opposed to what what can Kris do for me? What can Kris help me with based on his
Chris
life
likes
story?
Chris likes Palantir.
Yeah, Kris likes Palantir.
No, but let me ask you something, because there was a rumor, right? And Palantir has never commented on it officially, but with all the insane amounts of data, apparently Palantir was involved in tracking down Osama bin Laden in a military base in Pakistan. And no one ever publicly acknowledged it, but people, I think it was in 0 to 1, uh, they just said no comment. But people are just like, the insane amount of data that had to be put together to make those connections.
Yeah.
It was definitely like machine and human working together to get to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you think? You think there's any truth to that rumor,
Oh,
or you
dude, I
think
definitely think so. They got their funding from In-Q-Tel back when they started. They've always had a
please?
relationship with the NSA, the CIA. So I wouldn't say that they were 100% responsible for finding Osama bin Laden, but definitely they were a part of that equation that got them there. Because at the end of the day, Palantir doesn't give you answers. It gives you the ability to get better answers. That's how I would phrase it, right? Where you have all this data in the world, but if you can't make sense of that data, it's not helpful to you at all. That doesn't mean
100%.
that you can put an idiot on the other side of Palantir Foundry and that person becomes a superstar. No, it just makes that person better, but it's not going to replace,
Yeah,
it's not going
yeah,
to replace
100%.
some level of competence, right? So I would say the CIA understood the value of tools like Palantir, where they're taking all the data and able
Yeah.
to kind of create a way that you can figure out where things are coming from. And then,
Yeah.
eventually they got Osama. You know.
Yeah. I remember this kind of. I know Palantir was involved in the evacuation of troops out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Not just troops, but the people. A lot of people were evacuated. And I remember there was like, it's to your point, like, even though they have data, someone has to decide what they're going to do with it. And the decision could be a bad
and
one
it's
or
and it's not
could be a
only
good one, you know?
it's not only having data, but what happens is there's data from across the federal government, right? So an example is, you know, let's say you put a visa application in. Well, Department of Homeland Security has your application, so they know everything about you, right? So
Hmm.
imagine you're a contractor in Afghanistan. You work for a company that has contracts with the U.S. government. So you helped Americans, right? Which means that you should be allowed to come to America. Well, guess what? What if that contractor no longer exists? Well, there's other data sources that might point you to that connection, right? Maybe you made some connections with someone on the CIA side. Maybe you work for another contractor that does have your records. Maybe there's a human resources record somewhere. So to gather all that data in a short period of time and be able to vet people, because that's what they did. They were helping with vetting people
Yeah.
from Afghanistan so that no one could just say, hey, I supported America during the war. No, you need to have proof. Now, the thing is, the proof that you provide has to be checked against an existing database, whether that be the CIA database, NSA database, Homeland Security database, the Army's database, the any other contracting databases that exist within the military, so that this
Yeah.
way, what you're saying can be proved. And once you're proved, then you're able to kind of come here and your family and everything else. And literally, Palantir had done that with like almost in a very short period of time. And then I think they were also involved with the logistics of getting people, I mean, getting
Yeah.
planes to Afghanistan and out, because you have to have coordination of getting things there and getting things out too. It's not enough
Yeah.
to say, let's send a whole bunch of planes to Afghanistan. That's not a plan,
Yeah.
you know?
Just gonna be flying in circles, waiting to land. But that's something I feel like kind of we miss, right, in the retail world of things. Like Palantir gets a lot of heat for all the wrong reasons. Like people would say, oh, something something Palantir's data, something something health records. It's always this negative rep, but they're involved in doing so much good. Like the World Food Program, this evacuation effort, which all happened like
Yeah.
overnight. It happened super
Well,
quickly. Like,
what happens with
it's a
data
shame.
is that data is
Yeah.
a double-edged sword, right?
Hmm.
Where if you use it correctly, it can save people's lives, but if you use it the wrong way, it can actually target people. So an example that a lot of people give Palantir a lot of flack for is their work with ICE, right? For
Yeah.
immigration customs enforcement, right?
Yeah.
Most people that are immigrants, they're coming to this country not because they want to steal from, but because they want to try to improve their families' lives and everything. So we need to have a humanitarian angle to
Hmm.
addressing those people, right? But ICE also has a function. Their job is to enforce the laws that exist in the US, right? Whether or
Yeah.
not you agree with those laws or not is, a whole different thing. Now Palantir worked with the federal government to enforce those laws. They exist. If people want to change those laws, by all means they should. But you shouldn't use Palantir as the reason, like as the cause of people getting deported, right?
Yeah.
Palantir provided software to the U.S. government,
100%.
specifically to ICE, and one of the reasons why people were so mad was because ICE has a really low opinion among a lot of liberal people here in the U.S. Right, where they're like, oh, these people, they exist to just harass people and harass immigrants in particular, and that's not necessarily the case. They have a job to do. Now, Palantir helps them do their job, which means that if they don't agree with the job, they automatically assume that Palantir is helping that person do a job, which means Palantir is also bad. So your criticism of a governmental agency now just became your criticism of a private entity. And that's weird
Right.
because that's not how you should look at it. I wonder how many people should criticize Microsoft if that's the case, because you think ICE agents aren't using Windows to use the operating system. You think
Man, you nailed
why
it,
aren't why aren't
100%. Yeah.
why aren't people
Mad
picketing
at
Dell?
Ford, the
Or
cars they're driving. Like,
yeah, why don't they
yeah, yeah,
start? Yeah, why don't they start going after Dell for giving them computers? Why not go after Nike or for giving them
where
shoes?
does it end?
Like
The
that's the
food that they eat.
yeah.
Shut down McDonald's.
I saw an ICE agent eat at McDonald's. Let's start boycotting McDonald's. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. No, I
you
get you,
know,
man.
yeah.
But that comes down. This is a tricky question. I mean, not a tricky question, but it's a tricky situation because I remember Google caved under the pressure because they were working on a project apparently, and then they dipped. They were like, okay,
Private Maven, Project Maven.
we're
Yeah,
not gonna work on this project anymore. But Palantir stuck to its guns, and it's like, look, it's unfortunate. We've had superstar employees express their dissatisfaction, and they left. But Palantir has its values, and its values is to protect America, ensure its laws are followed, and that's what we're doing.
this is where I would say to you, imagine right now, let's go back in time. Let's say in medieval times, you're a blacksmith and you make a sword, right? That sword can be used for two purposes. It could be used to attack people, but it can also be used to defend people. Because guess what? In the
100%.
right hands, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about Palantir, it's the same thing. We want our federal government to have the best sword possible so that they can defend us, right? And sometimes that means that they can attack. But the one difference with Palantir is that their values say that we're not trying to give them tools to attack people. We're trying to give them the tools to defend us, right? And they've even built the platform around that whole concept. So I think that's one of the key differences. Whereas Google realized from a business perspective, and the other thing is Google has majority of their operations in California, right? They can't just uproot. Palantir is much smaller. Palantir could uproot themselves, move to Denver, and dealt with the
But
fallout and
what
the
do you
flag.
mean? Yeah, why does that matter, California?
Well,
Because I'm Canadian, so I mean,
yeah,
look, my assumptions are California super liberal,
yeah,
and the rest is depends. So
yeah.
is that why, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, from a political angle, there are certain areas in the country where there's a certain there's a certain thought pattern that emerges, right? In California, there's a very liberal thought process there. So a lot of the people, they believe in the same thing. They believe in what do you call it? I wouldn't say unlimited immigration, but a very lax immigration policy, right?
Okay.
Whereas other people may not necessarily feel that way, right? Now, the thing is, Google, being the giant it is, it can't pivot away from that, right? They
Right,
can't
because
just
its
move.
employees are all there. Okay,
Right.
I get it. I
Everything is
get
there.
it.
Palantir, on the other hand, can move. They're much smaller. They weren't even public at the time when they moved,
Right.
right? So they had the ability to be more flexible and move away. Now the thing is, these policies, whether or not you agree with them, is a different thing, but they can be harmful and they could hurt the companies themselves. Like high taxation is a big thing in California, right?
Oh yeah,
So guess what
trust.
these
We pay a
so
lot of taxes into
yeah.
California.
So how many companies right now said, you know what? We're gonna move out of California. We're gonna move somewhere else. Hewlett Packard, they moved to Texas. Elon Musk moved
Yeah,
the
that's a big
Tesla
move.
to there. So there's a ton of companies that don't necessarily agree with the values that are pronounced in California right now. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that California is wrong by any means. It's just something that each company is gonna have to realize and then go with. Maybe Google will one day move. I don't know, but
Yeah.
right now they feel comfortable with staying where they are.
You know, the politics from the north, I find is like crazy in the states, but one thing that always made me feel comfortable about Palantir is that everybody can kind of like recognize Palantir is just America first. Doesn't even care who's in power. It's going to give the best tools it can so that America stays on top, stays ahead, and is always on top of its game. And I feel like a lot of politicians have begun to recognize that. But what do you feel? Like, do you feel that Palantir's business with the government can like pivot based on who's in power, which party's leading, or do you agree with the way I see Palantir?
So the way I would say it is, we live in a democracy with safeguards that are put in, right? There's checks and balances that are out there. Now, just because one party controls the government at any given time doesn't mean that, we should just write off America if we don't agree with that political party, right? And if you remember, Palantir grew up around the time of Barack Obama. That's when they landed a lot of their contracts. A lot of the
True.
stuff that they started doing was under Obama, who was a liberal, right? And under Joe Biden during the Biden years. So the question is, if you're
Oh yeah,
okay with
100%.
you're okay with Palantir helping Barack Obama, but then Donald Trump comes in and you're not okay with helping him. The thing is, when you're working with the government, you can't just say, well, you know what, I don't agree with who the people elected. I'm going to stop supporting it now, because that's a one-way ticket to never getting another government contract ever, because
Yeah.
then you can't be trusted.
Yeah.
They're saying you're a fair weather friend. Now here's the thing: the way that a democracy works is that you have to believe in the people enough to the point where you're able to trust that those checks, those safeguards will keep the person at the other end of the control spectrum from making crazy moves and making crazy decisions, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have these checks and balances in the first place. Companies should not be deciding who should be in political power, because the minute we start doing that, that goes back into like Marcus Crassus dictating who's going to be consul of Rome in the Roman days, where the richest person can determine who should be in power and who should be in charge. Should Google be in charge of electing the president? Should Google be in charge of deciding who should be elected for governor? No, it should be the people, right? And sometimes the people make stupid moves and make stupid decisions. But that's why we have checks and balances and safeguards to prevent those stupid people from eventually, destroying the country. And even if they do destroy the country, they destroy it only for 4 years,
Yeah, that's the beauty of democracy, right? I mean, what I love, and it's super important, like in the States, you only get a chance to be president for like 8 years max, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't do, or if you didn't reach your vision that you wanted for the country within 8 years, then too bad, so sad, it's over.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, because a lot of other countries, they don't really do that, right? They just say, okay, it's a distraction. Like Russia's always like, oh, now it's too busy out, it's too crazy right now, so I'm gonna stay president. Forget it, and they just keep it going.
Yeah.
So
let me just share this one clip with you really quickly, and this is like probably one of my favorite clips. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can just put it up.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
This is pretty sick. We have 13 people live.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
So can you see the screen? Oh, hold on.
No, not yet.
Can you put that up there? Like, click on your thing.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So one of the biggest criticisms of America is that because of our political system, we're always fighting with each other and we never agree on anything, right? And one of the Supreme Court justices actually broke it down, and he said a lot of people think that that's a negative, but that's actually a really big positive. And the way he explains it is amazing. So let me just play it real quick and everyone can watch together. Hold on one second.
This guy's a legend.
Look at the system and they say, well, it passes one house, it doesn't pass the other house. Sometimes the other house is in the control of a different party. It passes both. And then this president who has a veto power vetoes it. And they look at this and they say, it is gridlock. And I hear Americans saying this nowadays, and there's a lot of it going around. They talk about a dysfunctional government because there's disagreement, and the framers would have said, yes, that's exactly the way we set it up. We wanted this to be power, contradicting power, because the main ill that beset us, as Hamilton said in the Federalist, when he talked about a separate Senate, he said, yes, it seems inconvenient, but inasmuch as the main ill that besets us is an excess of legislation, it won't be so bad. This is 1787. He didn't know what an excess of legislation was. So unless Americans can appreciate that and learn to love the separation of powers, which means learning to love the gridlock, which the framers believed would be the main protection of minorities, the main protection. If a bill is about to pass that really comes down hard on some minority, they think it's terribly unfair, It doesn't take much to throw a monkey wrench into this complex system. So Americans should appreciate that, and they should learn to love the gridlock. It's there for a reason, so that the legislation that gets out will be good legislation.
So this was you can stop the clip. Yeah. So this was around the topic of too many laws that are out there, you know. But the thing is, just because a political party is in power doesn't mean that the minority can't throw a monkey wrench into it, right? So the reason why is because one party, if it gets too much control, it can create more and more laws that benefit it as opposed to the country overall. So right now, because of the way that our system is built, these checks and balances, they kind of prevent the over, like, too much power being centralized into one entity or one party. And these are the kinds of things that make America really, really amazing, right? It gives you the ability to constantly evolve, but at the same time, do it in a very tempered way. And that's why I think Palantir right now says, you know what, the US, for all the faults that we have, is the country worth supporting, because they're providing value. Like, they're providing values to the rest of the world that people can rely on, you know. And to be honest, I love this country to death. I mean, I fought for it. There's definitely times where there are politicians that I don't agree with that come into power, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing my job. That doesn't mean that, you know, I raised my hand and I said I would serve this country, but I didn't say I would only serve this country if a Democrat was in power or a Republican
100%.
was in power. That's not how it works. You know, we as a country have to respect each other's differences and opinions. And Palantir, they stand by that and they're sticking with it. And I love it. That's why one of the reasons why I'm investing in this company too, because I want to see a future where people can say, you know what, we're here to support the government, and we're not going to take just because one political party is in power, you know, that's going to negatively affect this company. I mean, normally most companies, what they do is they take a very neutral stance. Palantir, at least on one hand, goes with its values, puts its values out there and respects them and publishes them. Whether or not that's good for business or not, I don't know. You know, I don't think so, to be honest with you. It's probably never a good idea to project where you are in a lot of equations, but
yeah, speaking of that, I mean, I think one of the things people would say, wait, first, thanks for sharing that video. It really did highlight, because sometimes even me in Canada, I would get super annoyed at how things take forever to get done. But you just grounded me and showed me that, like, it's important, because you don't want n'importe quoi. You don't want some garbage legislation targeting minorities to just pass right through because a government or a company's pushing it. So it's eye-opening. So thanks for sharing that. But yeah, to your point, you know, when Palantir says, "Oh yeah, you know, we don't mess with companies that are not aligned with our values, or countries that are not aligned with our values." So countries and companies. So that would mean, like, they're okay with most Western nations, but it kind of scopes out a lot of the, you know, Chinese markets, Russian markets, like those firms operating in those companies, in those countries. Even if they're good and they're independent, overnight they can become not independent. So it's like,
the problem with companies like that operate from a different like area, right, is they can be nationalized at any given time. Like right now, if you look at Alibaba is a Chinese company. You know, tomorrow morning, the Chinese government can just snap a finger and say, "Hey, guess what, guys? We need you to work on this project. You're going to work on it." There's no, you know, like, there's no wall against doing that, and that's what the companies do. So right now,
100%.
if the Chinese government wanted a company to, you know, do something, they'll do it. So the question is, if Palantir works with, let's say, Alibaba and gives them all this technology, and tomorrow morning the Chinese government says, "You know what? We don't like the US anymore. You know, we're going to use that technology that we got from Palantir via Alibaba to target US citizens and to make their lives difficult somehow."
yeah.
You don't want
That's the biggest thing today, right? The hottest topic today is the SEC. They have a new law in the States where they said, okay, well, Chinese firms that are listed in the American exchanges as an ADR, we want the ability to go and review your audited financials. You know, you're telling the American public, these are your numbers based on an audit that happened in China, but us Americans need to be sure that our American investors are getting the real numbers, So let us do an audit. And the Chinese are saying, like, go screw yourself. We're not letting you see our confidential financial info. And now firms are on the wait list to get delisted potentially. But now apparently China is saying, oh yeah, we're open to discussing and finding a solution, but like, why, to your point, why would you take, when they're resistant for financial records, why would you allow Palantir to go into these markets and just have all these critical softwares in the wrong hands, as a road put it?
And the Chinese have been known to be pretty much to they're literally, the espionage program is very, very strong. They've been known to take in intellectual property, and they don't respect intellectual property. They'll build, like right now, if you look at some of the Chinese military, they're literally built on designs that were designed in the U.S. Like there's a huge one, like the Aegis tracking system with the Navy. That was completely stolen from the U.S.
Oh, for real?
So yeah, technology. It's easier to steal technology, and it's cheaper to steal technology than to develop it yourself. So what do you think the Chinese are going to do? Are they going to try to build a new missile that's able to, go from point A to point B in 30 seconds? Or are they just going to steal the technology from a company in the US? Well, guess what? Once they steal it, they can just mass produce it.
100%.
And that's the same thing with software. They could steal the software. Have you ever seen this show called Silicon Valley?
I have it on my watch list, but I didn't get to it yet. No.
Yeah, you
But
gotta watch
up and
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Watch Silicon Valley, you'll love it. And there's like this one part where this guy Jin Yang just basically takes like American versions of companies and just makes them in China, right?
Yeah.
It's like new China and new Facebook.
But yeah, I've always but that's something that goes back in time. Like people used to do that all the time. Like they would take, great foods from, out east and bring it to the States and just say, yeah, yoga is everywhere now because people are just kind of taking it and bringing it. No one's getting paid for it. Like nobody knows who, there's no royalties going around for that, so I don't know. But
stealing a few yoga moves is fine by me. I don't care, dude. The part that gets to me is when they do it wrong and they make it like they do like their version of it, and it's totally weird. Let me just show you one thing. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was on College Humor a little while back. Hold on, yoga College Humor. This is like one of my favorite clips from when I was a kid. Hold on one second. I don't know if you ever saw College Humor.
I have not seen College Humor.
Let me see. There we go. All right. Just put that on the screen.
What is this? It's a show like a network,
it's
on
just a
Comedy
clip.
Network or something? Okay,
It's a
okay,
clip.
okay.
No. I think at one point they might have been on there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, let me show it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Done. Let's go.
All right, everyone, let's get started. Just choose a spot that feels right to you.
Hello. Sorry, excuse me.
Someone's gonna get close. I don't think I've seen you before. Beginners usually take a spot at the front so they can watch me.
Oh, no. I'm pretty familiar with yoga. I'll be okay.
Okay, well, if you need a block or a strap, you just let me know. Everybody's doing great. Gandhi, just toward the ceiling on that up dog, okay?
Oh, do you mean my Urdhva Mukha Svanasana?
No up dog. Don't worry, you'll learn the terminology. Gandhi, you gotta pick up the pace. You're not gonna burn any carbs. Would you stop looking at my butt?
What? I didn't. I'm celibate.
You're doing great, but maybe next time try and wear appropriate yoga attire. Okay, maybe a lycra top.
This is a traditional Indian dhoti. I spun it myself.
Right. There's a Lululemon down the street.
Is this Coldplay? Yeah. This is definitely Coldplay.
I'm on a juiced fast, so
Oh, you're fasting. What for? To protest imperialism?
beach season.
Beach season.
Right, let's keep it down. This is a place of quiet reflection.
I'm pretty sure this is a crunch gym. There's a guy giving out sports drinks right there.
You look thirsty.
Are you kidding me? This is a Yankee Candle. Cinnamon bun.
With all due respect, Mahatma, I am a certified yoga instructor.
Oh, really? Who's your guru? Carl Smith. What an honorable yogi. I really want to try Yoga Lotte's class.
Oh my god,
Carl
that is
Smith.
so spiritual.
Bitch, you do realize this is my actual religion, right? I will give anyone $10 if they can tell me who this is. Anyone? No, I didn't think so. It's Krishna, 8th incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Learn it. Why is it so fucking hot in here?
We're doing good.
Classic.
Well, you know, in my day, we did a traditional form of yoga where the room was normal and you didn't sweat your balls off.
You seem stressed. Just take a breath and flow your chakras down into your heart center.
What? Never mind. I'm leaving. Fuck all of you.
Oh, man. Oh, what the
Dude, I'm telling you, man. Like,
Yeah.
that's where people. That's whenever I see everyone doing yoga, I always laugh.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, it's definitely not what it. But I'm not saying it's bad. It's
Dude,
it's the
you need
Americanized
to-
version of it. It's like a lot of Chinese people. Whenever like I remember one of my college roommates. He's like, man, I love that General Tso's chicken. That General Tso must be real. I said, dude, that's like the Kentucky Fried Chicken thing. There's no there.
And
I don't
isn't
know if
that
there really
American?
was a Colonel, huh?
Isn't that American General Tao? Isn't
General
it
Tso.
American?
Yeah, there was never a General Tso. I don't think General Tso made finger
Are
licking.
you, are you saying it with the S or isn't it with the T? Isn't it General Tao? Are you saying Tao?
No, it's General Tso. The T is silent. See, even we can't agree on that. Do y'all pronounce the T in Canada? You
Yeah,
guys-
yeah. I was like General Tao, bro.
bro, it's not Tao. It's Tso. It's TSOU, bro. It's General
Tabs.
Tso. It's chicken.
You're so cultured, man. Damn, I would have
Dude,
never.
I'm not. I mean, if I'm gonna use like some fake Chinese, I'm gonna make sure I'm using the right fake Chinese. You know. But yeah.
Yeah, but so speaking of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like yoga, I've been doing it. I've been meditating time to time, because the share price has been like taking a massive beating these days, and I'm trying to like keep my cool. Honestly, what makes me comfortable is like I really do know the company inside out in terms of the financials, so I know like okay, the company's not going out of business tomorrow. And the story that management is building, like, we had 25 headcount and we banged out 400 million in commercial sales with 25 experienced headcount. Now we got another 65 waiting to get trained, because they have 80 as of December. So like when that 65 becomes experienced, then they start selling. The storyline that management's pitching is like, things are going to go on uptrend, 30% growth. And they have 2 billion in cash, 0 debt. So I'm like, it's okay, but but the man, I don't know, it still sucks to see it, but like, how do you feel about that?
To be honest with you, I don't think about it very much because right now I'm just DCAing, right? When you dollar cost average, it's great. If the price goes up, yay, my portfolio went up. If it goes down, it's like, this week I'm getting a discount on the shares that I was going to buy anyway.
100%.
So, you got to have the stomach to deal with the volatility. I don't have the stomach to do the options that much on Palantir. I do have some call contracts that are probably going to expire worthless, but they're like dated to 2024 and they're for like a $20-something stock.
I hope it would be in the money by then.
Yeah.
Don't get into covered calls, man. That shit is it with this stock. Oh my god! Like some weeks you're like, whatever. Okay, we made some money, and then like last week was terrible. On Tuesday, stock was like at $10, and I was 10 something, and I was like, it's always great. 10.50. I was like, I sold the covered call on 11.50. In 2 days, the stock was already at like 12 something, and then I had to roll my covered call, and I was just like,
Yeah, here's a question that Sean just put on there. Many
let's
people
see.
are not aware of the finance side. There you go.
Why aren't they profitable? Okay, honestly, I think the main reason that they're not profitable today on a financial statement basis is they have a lot of SBC. So when they have a lot of SBC or options become in the money, all of that has to be recognized on the financials. And I think it's valid. SBC being recognized on the financials, some people disagree. Some people say SBC shouldn't be on the financials as an expense because it's not a real cash expense. It's just stock that's being sold on the market. But in my opinion, if you gave the company cash and you said, hey guys, here's the cash, give it to your employees, it would show up as an expense and it would be a cash expense. You know what I mean? Like it would still be a legitimate employee compensation expense. So one of the main reasons I think they're not profitable today is because of SBC. It's been super high the past rolling 24 months. So going back 2 years with them going public, with options becoming in the money, because stock went from like $9 DPO, I think, to like 20 something. So a lot of stocks were in the money. All of that had to be recognized on the income statement. But if we have time, I could show you an analysis that I was doing for this to see like, okay, what do we have to do to become profitable? And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So wait, hold on. Let me see if I can I'll put it on my second screen.
Yeah.
1 second. So, okay, cool. Do we got my second screen on? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So here, this is the financials, okay? This is what ended in the year. Can you guys see? Do I need to zoom in a little bit?
Zoom in a little bit and also take Sean off the
Yeah.
thing. So
Sorry, Sean. Let me take you off there. Okay, cool. So this is where we ended, okay? 1.54 billion. 1.54 billion. That's pretty good. Great. Cost of revenue, fantastic, super low. Gross profit, 1.2 billion, 78%. This is solid. It's good gross profits, okay? 78%. And if you look at the trend line in the past, they went from 67 to 68 to 78. So Palantir is going in the right direction for a gross profit. But this is where they're being killed. It's in here. They have way too many expenses. Some of it is largely SBC. And that's where we need to see those numbers come down, because until SBC doesn't come down, they're always going to be in a loss position. And the only reason why SBC was crazy high in the past 24 months was because of all the options that became in the money. And when they become in the money, you have to recognize these things as a legitimate expense on the financials. Now, this is where my big takeaway is. And I was doing simulations myself to say like, okay, well, projection for 2022, what do we have to do to become profitable? And I've been playing around in the past and, I still say like, where is it? Like, I still see them not getting there quite yet. I still see them having a smaller loss. But as SBC comes under control, it's very possible that this can become profitable. And, this line right here, other income expense, this is their SPACs. So all the SPAC losses they have, the unrealized SPAC losses, like in that period that ended 31st of December, they had about $75 million in SPAC losses, and unrealized effects, unrealized and realized effects. Like all of the effects and their investments in SPACs are all recognized here. So if this number like goes down to zero, we're getting closer to the net income, the GAAP net income profit mark. But SBC needs to come down. Like this, like I didn't do anything. All I said was, I took the baseline of 2021. I said, okay, sales and marketing is 40%, 25, 40. And I just slapped it on to the 2022 projection. But in here, if we can shave this down, we're going to become profitable. Like the destination of profitability, GAAP net income profitability is reachable, but it needs a lot of elements to line up. Like the SPACs cannot be in a major loss position. And right now, I did a refresh before. Like these are all the SPACs. I track all the SPACs. And the last time I did a refresh, it was an unrealized loss of 180 million. So if they sold all their SPACs at a loss, you would see 180 million being booked. So today the SPACs are not doing bueno. They're doing very bad. but hopefully by next year's end, they will be in a better place. But look, let's say we do that. We just say, okay, yeah, they're going to lose 180 million. Potentially, if they grow 30%, gross profits follow the same path as 2021. The SPAC is 180 million, and everything else trends the same way. They're going to be in a net loss position of 300 million. It's inevitable.
What is your valuation outlook? Because I saw your spreadsheet right there. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, I haven't updated it yet for the latest numbers, but what I have updated is the SBC, how I see things happening going forward. And what's super important in doing any valuation exercise is to really say, what is the total shares outstanding? Like, where are we going to end up? So right now, I have, if everything is exercised and it vests, Palantir will have 2.5 billion shares outstanding. Right now, they have 1.9. With Class B and Class F, they have about 2 billion shares. But if all of the restricted stock units, options, stock appreciation rights, if all of these things come out and they vest and they get exercised and they go on the market as a share, then Palantir will end at 2.5 billion. So this is super important because obviously it feeds all the valuations that I did. Wait, let me go to the bottom. This is super high level, dirty valuations that I did. I didn't make it a big science project, but I'll kind of the numbers should flow regardless. But this is based on September. Okay. I'll show you what I did. Let's look at the moderate because I want to be reasonable. So tax rate, these are all the rates that I have support with. So tax rate's 19%. This I got from, have you ever heard of Aswat Damodaran? He's like a valuation guru.
Yeah, NYU.
Yeah. He came to my university, Concordia University, JMSB in Montreal, and I met him. And back then, he was talking about Tesla, how Tesla was so damn overvalued. Little did we know. I listened to him, like, yeah, screw Tesla, so overvalued. They have to sell so many cars like Toyota at Porsche margins. They're never going to make it, but now Tesla did 10x or 20x since then, But regardless, he's very good at what he does. So I use his database and he said, okay, tax rate for software companies, 19%. I came up with my own discount rate of 14%. Average growth rate, I baked in 34% on average. It's kind of ridiculous, okay? 34%, where Palantir is in the billions of revenues, it's a huge challenge to do. But I baked it in that it would be 34% over the next 10 years. And at that time, see the current price, $12.35. This was when I last did my analysis. I don't even know what the stock price is, but I think it's around there.
Yeah.
So 2.5 billion shares. So what I did was I took the cash flows, okay, the adjusted free cash flows. 2021, I said year-end estimate was 400. They actually finished around 424, if I'm not mistaken. But let's just keep it at 400. So I said at the end of the day, valuation for a company comes down to, people typically start from income statement and then they strip out all the non-cash items and then they come to a cash flow amount. Mm-hmm. But what I just did was, from Palantir's point of view, their cash flow from operations is what all the drive is, what drives their cash flow, what drives their cash. Their cash from investing is very little. They throw some money in SPACs, but they don't issue shares anymore they don't go issue shares in the public to raise money. So it doesn't matter. Their cash to finance equipment is very little. So I just said cash from operations is going to drive my analysis. And I said, okay, revenues grow 30%. Cash also needs to grow 30%. I made that assumption that it needs to track the same way. So cash grows 40%, cash grows 30%. It follows the same trend line that I put together. And at the end of the day, I said they have a multiple at 2033. They're going to be sold at 17.5 times their EBITDA. And then I said, okay, all of that minus taxes, we get with this unlevered free cash flow. Discount all of this back at 14%, and we get a value of $19 today.
Yeah. In today's dollars, yeah.
Yeah, in today's dollars. So that's why this is just my fluff analysis. People can make this a huge science project and still end up being precisely wrong. But the reason why I do these type of things is just to give me comfort. Like, oh shit, Palantir's at $12. Should I be freaking out? But then I'll be like, no, if things go the way it should be, Palantir's technically worth 19 and nobody notices. And this is how I think of it, and I'm okay. And that's why these are the type of things I do to gain conviction, to maintain conviction. And so this was my moderate scenario. I also have a ridiculous bullish scenario. A ridiculous bullish scenario where I say they grow at 45%, on average over 10 years. And then that means, oh shit, Palantir's worth 41. Like, oh, people are sleeping. I need to keep buying, So it depends where you sit on this fence. But, there's the bullish, the moderate, which is more realistic. And then the bearish is 27%. So a lot less, they do their 30% growth that they told everyone they're going to do through 2025. And then things slow down to be 25%. Then it's like, oh, Palantir's worth $12. And today it's around 12, so nothing to panic about. It's still fair value. You could buy if you want to buy. And if you're confident in management's ability to kill it and grow more than these numbers, then it's potentially worth more. And that's my valuation tab that I rarely show anyone, but I did that.
Thanks, man. Well, you showed it to the 13 people here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So look, to become profitable, like going back to Sean, I'm like rambling on, but I think the path to profitability, honestly, guys, if you could just get them to shave down these numbers, let's say they do 35 here, 20 here, 35 here. The SPACs are not going to be losing 100 million. They're losing 180. It's going to be 100 million. Then bang, net income they're in a profitable position. Net income is going to be profitable.
So there is a possibility, in your opinion,
of course,
to get the gap profitability by the end of the year.
Of course,
if they maintain their revenue increases while at the same time limiting their cost. But if you think about it from an RSU perspective, if the price is down, doesn't that also mean that, well, no, actually the RSUs wouldn't factor in, because RSUs are granted on a rotating basis, right? So, yeah.
But the biggest thing is we need to step back. Numbers is one thing, but let's look at business, guys. The business is Palantir hired Philip Mathieu in Europe. They're expanding sales operation. Palantir said, listen, guys, we have 80 or 90 80 heads, I believe it was, in sales for US operations. All these people need to be trained. All these people, are going to be sitting on the sidelines for a little bit. But, all of this is costs that are going to be flowing into the P&L, So is it going to be material? I don't know. Let's say, okay, let's do a quick number here. Like, let's say we had 100 salespeople. Okay, now let's say 200 salespeople. I'm just making numbers up. Okay, the worst case scenario, 200 salespeople making 100K US. You're going to have this much, not 100K US, but this is simple maths.
150. For software sales, it's way more.
Yeah? Oh, I'm in the wrong business, man. So, you would have 3 million.
They also get part of commission too, because they all work on a commission basis as well.
Yeah. So if we have 200 heads sitting around idling because they're not fully out on the field killing it, that's about $30 million in pressure on the bottom line, So that $30 million, maybe they're experienced salespeople and they could start bringing in smaller deals, and then not the mega blockbuster ones, but the smaller ones. And they might offset the costs. But, and with Palantir, all you need is one deal, man. They bring in huge multi-million-dollar deals. So it's very possible that this is a moot point. Yeah. But I've never been in sales. Like, do you know people in sales? Like, have you ever done sales, Chris?
I haven't personally done software sales, but I do know that. Oh, there it is. What's his name? Sean just put 375,000.
Oh no, Sean, you're killing me, man.
We're the wrong business. I'm like, man, I need to start selling some software.
Yeah. So 75 million. So 200 heads sitting around, maybe 75 million. But can those 200 heads bringing money, guys? Remember, we had 25 heads over 9 months experience in US ops, and they brought in 400 million, right?
Well,
25 heads.
the question is not so much that they brought in 400, it's how much did they bring on top of what the existing contracts were,
Of
right? And
course,
then
yes.
those are going to be seen in the future, how they add to the value on top of it, which they probably
Yeah.
will. And I think it's the same thing with the Europeans as well, right? Because
Yeah.
remember, when it comes to software, you're not just selling a product and it's being expensed right away. It's things that can expand out and grow and actually become way more material in the future too, right? Because that's, like I said, that goes right back into the business model with the acquire. I keep forgetting.
Expand
the
and
phase.
scale, man. Acquire,
Yeah.
expand, and scale, baby.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
But wait, to your point now, because you said that 25 heads, 400 million. You're right, because that could have been deals from the past. But before the 25 heads prior year, I think they had even a lower number of headcount in sales. I have the number right in front of me. They said they had, oh my God, it was even more ridiculous. Where is it? It was 5 experienced headcount. Was that it? Yeah, they had 5 experienced headcount before that had more than 9 months experience in sales in the prior years. So
what I'm always shocked at with when
6.
I see,
Sorry, it's 6.
Yeah.
6.
Whenever I see Palantir and this part of it, I always get shocked because you have one of the greatest salespeople in the world, Peter Thiel. You know, he wrote the book 0 to 1, and he stresses the importance of having good sales. I wonder why Palantir didn't really go with that, and just put that out there. I don't know, man. Some of the stuff, I wonder how Peter Thiel, like, how much of an influence Peter Thiel really is at Palantir. Whether or not he's taking more of a role. I think now he's taking much more of a role. Whereas
Because he
maybe 5
resigned
years
from
ago-
Facebook?
Yeah.
Because he resigned? I don't know, man. People are saying like he's like gun-ho on politics and stuff, but I don't know. But I think he does have influence because every big company that is kind of affiliated or he's invested in, they sometimes pivot towards Palantir and doing like a
I can
contract
tell
with
you,
them.
there's a few government, there's a few politicians that are running this midterm. So if they win, they'll end up helping. I'm gonna do a couple of videos on the crossroads between government contracts and politicians and how corrupt it is sometimes. So
Oh, yeah.
you need to have lobbyists. Like Palantir spends money on lobbyists in Washington a lot more now because they understand if you don't have their lobbyists in row, bro, you will never get a government contract. It just sucks. Like you need legislation to have wording in there that's favorable to your company and to your sector and industry. That's one of the ways that we operate in the U.S. So,
That's
like I said,
insane.
I'm gonna do a video about it. You'll enjoy it. Everyone, just wait for that video. I'll probably put it out tomorrow or something.
For real? Okay, that's great. I've heard like that's something Alex Karp touched on. I remember in one of his interviews, he was like, "Guys, okay, first, let's acknowledge how Palantir sued the U.S. government or the U.S. Army and still ended up doing."
Don't stop. I'm gonna talk about that tomorrow, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like
It's
I said,
crazy, man.
I don't want to ruin the.
Oh, I got you, bro.
thing, all right?
But
So,
that
yeah.
was that's incredible, So,
Yeah.
and I seen pictures of like President Trump, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp in the same room with a bunch of huge IT executives. Like everyone was there. Tim Apple. They're all there together. They're all there
Tim
together.
Apple, Tim Cook, but okay.
yeah.
All right.
I'll
All
never
right.
forget that,
I
man.
gotta start heading out. So yeah, man, I had a great
man.
time. This was good. See,
Yeah,
your
honestly-
first live stream is done. Good
I
job.
know, Chris. Thank you, man. Thank you for making this happen. Thank you for encouraging me to do it. I've never had the courage to do things live because I usually do all my videos super late. I always yawn. I'm always like after work, and I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta edit this out now, So I'm happy that I did it today, and I did it with you. You gave me that little push to have the courage
Yeah.
to do it. So it means
Thank
a
you,
lot, man.
Sean. I was gonna say thank you, Sean, for coming through. Sean is always one of the guys I can look forward to in the chat, asking all the right and interesting questions. I appreciate it, man.
100%.
I appreciate all you guys. Give Jat some love. Give him some subscribers. Get this.
Thank you, guys.
Give this community some love, man.
Yeah, appreciate you, Sean. Yeah, Sean been active. Drew's been active. A road. Yo, respect, guys. Thank you so much. And the drugwartoday.com. Palantir to the moon, of course. Yeah, Palantir is going to change our lives, guys. Trust me.
All
I'm
right.
positive of it. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
I'll see you
Kris.
guys anytime, brother. Take care.
Peace. All right. Take care, man. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Ciao.